Battle through the firmament. Great World. Chapter 461. The horror of the sneak attack. It's really me. After muttering softly, Wu Shaoqi rolled her eyes and walked briskly towards the sealed origin key space. Not far away, Zhou Exingyu looked at Wu Shaoqi's disappearing back and blinked. She then looked at Xiaoyan and whispered in Zhou Buyi's ear, "Big brother, it seems like no one has completed the bet between you and Xiaoyan." When Zhou Buyi heard this, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. He naturally knew what Zhou Exingyu was talking about. His sharp eyes also looked at Xiaoyan and he softly said, "Wrong." Kang Feng directly eliminated Xiang Hao, but Xiaoyan defeated Kang Feng. I should have lost this bet. Without waiting for Zhou Exingyu to speak, Zhou Buyi suddenly smiled and said, "I also misjudged him. I did not expect him to be so strong. Although I am unhappy, he is stronger than me. This is the truth. I think Mu Yuyang has the same feeling as me. You two really appreciate each other." Zhou Exingyu wrinkled her nose and looked at Xiaoyan a few more times. Just when the latter sensed something, she hurriedly retracted her gaze. Yav Mu escaped. This is going to be fun. When Lin Dao went in again, Mu Yuyang suddenly smiled and whispered in Xiaoyan's ear. However, there was a hint of bitterness in his smile. Anyone who knew the strange strength of the soul demon would not be able to relax. Xiaoyan pursed his lips and shook his head helplessly. He had also heard about how Old Man Jiang and Ling Gu treated Xing Chanyu from Su Jiang. He didn't think about it. He was able to figure out the cause and effect of the incident. One of the 9 disciples, Yav Mu, had escaped from the forbidden area. Countless soul demons that were hiding in the dark corners of the great world woke up one after another. He would also have a backbone. Now, the true terror would gradually descend. Oh right, it seems like one of the 9 disciples, Tai Chi, is still sealed in that valley in star-severing mountain range. While Xiaoyan was sighing with emotion, he suddenly recalled the valley in star-severing mountain range. Where was he and Jade Fairy? After the battle with Yin Juxuan, they were scared away by the evil aura coming from the depths of the valley. According to Jade Fairy, there seemed to be a king of the soul demon clan sealed in the abyss in the valley. If Yav Mu goes out and rescues Tai Chi, my god, is this world really going to be thrown into chaos? Thinking of this, even with Xiaoyan's composure, he couldn't help but sweat on his forehead. Putting aside the strange strength of the soul demon, just their ability to control the heavenly beast was incomparably terrifying. Furthermore, with Yav Mu's ability, he could even control the holy beast. At the same time, he could also forcefully increase their strength by several times. This method was simply terrifying. Furthermore, the soul demon's most powerful trump card. It was the ability to resurrect a dead body, and by relying on the trace of yin qi of the dead. It could revive a dead expert, even though it only had half of its strength. However, it was still quite terrifying. It was a weak soul demon. If he had enough time, he would be able to gather an army of corpses. This was also the capital that the soul demon could rely on just 10 million people to fight against the billions of experts of the great world. The 9 disciples of the witchcraft tribe. Apart from Tai Chi and Yav Mu, there were 7 others who were sealed somewhere else. Xiaoyan muttered to himself in his heart. With their strange abilities, it was extremely difficult for them to kill the 9 disciples. The only way was to seal them. Even if they were to seal them, it would still take a lot of effort. With the power of the Domain Lord's magical body, they could only imagine how powerful the 9 disciples were if they had to die in order to seal Yav Mu. Next, Mu Yuyang. While Xiaoyan was lost in his thoughts, Old Man Jiang's voice came from the origin space once again. Mu Yuyang, who was standing beside him, walked in without any hesitation. Xiaoyan let out a light breath and put away the messy thoughts in his mind. Obviously, these things were not something he should consider at the moment. The strength of a monarch emperor did not even have the right to speak at the level of the experts in the great world. Suddenly, a loud sound was heard, attracting everyone's attention. Xing Chanyu's face was gloomy as he took out the star battleship that he had been riding. The battleship was golden and it was shining with a bright light. Compared to the old-looking battleship of Yunlo Academy, it was undoubtedly of a higher grade. The competition has ended. Star Sky Academy will take my leave now. With a gloomy expression, Xing Chanyu cupped his hands towards everyone. Without turning his head, he walked into the warship. Being beaten up by Old Man Jiang and Ling Gu in front of so many people, he had lost all of his face. Despite that, this anger, he didn't dare to vent it on Kang Feng. After all, Kang Feng was the young master of the Kang family. Furthermore, the matter was too complicated, and it wasn't appropriate for him to hold Kang Feng accountable. I won't see you out. Before everyone could speak, Old Man Jiang's tough voice was transmitted from within the origin key space. It was also incomparably cold. Under Xing Chanyu's request, Xiang Hao and the others helplessly entered the warship. Kang Feng was walking at the front. His eyes were unusually calm. However, under this calm gaze, there was an incomparably suppressed fury. Xiaoyan, I originally wanted to fight you, but because of the complicated situation, if I have the chance, I hope that you can fight me with your own strength next time. The moment before he stepped into the cabin door, Xiang Shaoshan suddenly turned his head and looked at Xiaoyan. With his intelligence, he could vaguely guess the ultimate skill that Xiaoyan and Kang Feng used during their fight. With the enhancement of the origin monic key, it was impossible for him to use it without restraint. I hope so too. Hearing this, Xiaoyan's eyes lit up. Then, he smiled lightly, ignoring the strange looks that the crowd was giving him. He replied with a clear voice. Xiang Shaoshan was the same as him. He was the highest trial participant in the same batch of academies. This time, he was able to defeat Kang Feng. If he didn't have this ultimate technique, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Kang Feng. It was impossible for him to persist any longer. Xiang Shaoshan smiled and looked at Xiaoyan. He then entered the warship. The cabin door slowly closed, and suddenly, it shot up into the sky, rushing towards the exit of Star Moon Island. In an instant, there was only a dim light spot left. Xiaoyan, come in. Not long after the warship left, Old Man Jiang's voice was heard again. This time, anyone could hear a trace of gentleness in his voice. Wu. His eyes were fixed on Xiaoyan, who had entered the origin key. On Zhou Yuan's originally calm face. At this moment, there was a trace of nervousness. He couldn't help but clench his fists under his sleeves. As the champion of the competition, Xiaoyan had 3 conditions. This also meant that Xiaoyan might even be able to obtain 3 Holy Arts Saint skills. In this way, even if he was stronger than Xiaoyan. Hong Long. Hey. After a moment of silence, the corner of Zhou Yuan's mouth curled into a smile. This was also good, at least it had completely ignited his fighting spirit. When he returned this time, he would let go of everything. He would focus on breaking through to the Emperor cultivation, and Monic Emperor. This was a clear dividing line. At that time, with the strength of an Emperor cultivation, he would be able to roam freely in the big world. At that time, his strength would increase. It would be even faster. Right now, he and Xiaoyan were competing who would reach the Emperor cultivation first. Zhou Yuan took a deep breath. The trace of jealousy in his heart disappeared without a trace. They were both at the same level, so there was no reason for him to be weaker than Xiaoyan. Zhu Mo, who was standing by the side, also seemed to have sensed the slight change in Zhou Yuan. He glanced at the latter in surprise. After that, he shifted his gaze to the spatial origin key in the center. Everyone was the same as him. They were all waiting for the 5 of them to come out. The 5 students of the Star Sky Academy. All of them had extraordinary statuses. No one would choose their sects. Therefore, the remaining students were their targets. Especially Xiaoyan. Chapter N. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 462. 3 Conditions. After stepping into the spatial zone formed by the origin key, Xiaoyan looked ahead. Old Man Jiang, Ling Gu, and Lu Chang were standing in front of him, while Mu Yuyang and the other three were standing at the side. Each of them was wrapped by an origin key, and their eyes were tightly shut. From time to time, joyful expressions could be seen on their faces. Clearly, they had comprehended something good. Xiaoyan, you are really not simple. First of all, congratulations on winning the first place in this competition. Looking at Xiaoyan, who was standing in front of him, Old Man Jiang's laughter was gentle. Ling Gu, who was standing beside him, also smiled and nodded. Not only was this young man powerful, he also had 3 types of monic flame. This kind of luck and strength had completely exceeded his imagination. Referees, you are being too serious. It is just a battle between Monic Emperor warriors. In your opinion, it is just a small fight. Xiaoyan smiled and said with an indifferent expression. It's just a small fight for others, but you and Kang Feng are not. Hearing this, Ling Gu smiled and looked at Xiaoyan, as if he had seen through everything. Back then, all of you were chased by a middle-aged man with white hair and escaped into a forbidden area. Xiaoyan raised his eyebrows and hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. Then, did you encounter any abnormalities in the forbidden area? Ling Gu kept chasing after him, but his tone was still calm. No, when you were fighting Kang Feng, you must have used the ultimate technique above the origin of the star field. I can tell that it is a part of the star law, the star execution. Besides, there's a black flame surrounding you. It should be the all-embracing nether flame. Ling Gu said. After knowing everything about him, Xiaoyan didn't try to hide anything from him. After pondering for a moment, he told him about the encounter with the Domain Lord's Dharma idol. Intentionally or unintentionally, he didn't mention anything about the Star Sky tablet. It really is the Domain Lord's Dharma idol. After listening to Xiaoyan's story, the few of them let out a soft sigh. They weren't surprised at all. The Lord should have expected this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given you the inheritance of the star execution. Unfortunately, we have disappointed the Lord. Lu Chang's expression was gloomy as he shook his head. His expression was filled with guilt. My Lord Protector has also said that there is a will of the heavens in this world. With the games of my Lord, Yavmu's appearance isn't necessarily a bad thing. Old Man Jiang, on the other hand, looked down on Xiaoyan. He revealed a profound smile and then looked at Xiaoyan. He said in a serious tone, "Tell me, what are your conditions?" Xiaoyan's heart skipped a beat. He hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still said what he wanted to say. I want 3 sets of medicinal ingredients to refine essence protecting pills. Currently, Xiaoyan had a pill and a set of medicinal herbs to refine essence protecting pills in his hand. He also had the comprehension of the heart flame burning. If his luck wasn't too bad, with that essence protecting pill, he would have a high chance of breaking through to the Emperor cultivation. But Zuna, Kai Lin, and the other 2. Xiaoyan also had to take this into consideration. When the time came, he would give the heart flame burning to the 4 of them. After consuming the essence protecting pill, the possibility of breaking through to the Emperor cultivation would be much higher. Although it would be safer to have 1 more essence protecting pill, he would need to consume the second one. The effects would undoubtedly be much worse, and people with poor physiques might not even be able to do it. There was also a possibility that he might suffer a backlash. Therefore, Xiaoyan's idea was that he had to succeed in consuming the first essence protecting pill. Essence protecting pill. Hearing this, Old Man Jiang gently smiled. His eyes did not leave any traces as he looked at Wu Shaoqi, who was wrapped in an origin key, and then looked at Xiaoyan and said, "Just now, that little girl used a chance to exchange for an essence protecting pill. If I'm not wrong, it should be for you." Xiaoyan could not help but be stunned when he heard that. A strange expression appeared on his face. He took a deep look at Wu Shaoqi. He suddenly said, "Then, what conditions did she put forward?" The 3 elders looked at each other. Ling Gu said with a smile, "Forget it, you are the first, so you have the right to know." Of her 3 conditions, one is for an essence protecting pill, one is for understanding everything about the ancient expert Fire Emperor, and the last one is to ask us about the pattern on a jade pendant. Xiaoyan pursed his lips and nodded silently. His heart was filled with complicated feelings, and he didn't know what to say. Also, why didn't she directly refine an essence protecting pill? The grade of the essence protecting pill isn't low either. There is a high failure rate when refining 3 sets of medicinal ingredients. Lu Chang chuckled and said in a clear voice. Xiaoyan shook his head lightly. Although it would save him a lot of trouble if he wanted to concoct the essence protecting pill, he could only resolve the matter at hand. If he wanted medicinal ingredients, not only would he be able to familiarize himself with the required medicinal ingredients, it would also be of great help to the refinement of the essence protecting pill. It was impossible for him to come here and ask for them when he needed them in the future. Are you sure you only want 3 sets? Ling Gu looked at Xiaoyan, and as he spoke, the space in front of him slowly shattered. He stretched out his hand, as if he were searching for something. I only need 3 sets. Xiaoyan nodded slowly. His face was firm and firm. Adding the one in his hand, there were exactly 4 sets. Zuna and the other 3 people each had 1 medicine pill. This also required him to be fully concentrated when refining each medicine pill. He had to put in 120% of his concentration. He absolutely could not fail once. After searching for a moment, Ling Gu stretched out his hand. In his hand were 3 red sandalwood boxes sealed by Origin Kiss. Each box contained a set of medicinal ingredients to refine essence protecting pills. Carefully putting away the 3 boxes, Xiaoyan could not help but be shocked by the Star Field's collection. Back then, that Emperor Cultivation Senior had spent his entire life gathering 4 sets of medicinal ingredients to refine essence protecting pills. He did not expect that he would be able to take out 3 sets of medicinal ingredients in a couple of breaths' time in this place. There are 2 more conditions. Ling Gu gave the 3 sets of medicinal ingredients to Xiaoyan and said with a faint smile. Next, can you raise this heavenly weapon by another level? Taking a deep breath, Xiaoyan gritted his teeth and took out the blue flame ruler. He looked at the 3 of them. The current grade of the blue flame ruler was a mid-grade heavenly weapon, and its power was also extraordinary. However, it did not seem to display any combat strength when it fought Kang Feng. Mid-grade heavenly weapon. I'm sorry, but our strength is only around the demonic cultivation. This has already surpassed our abilities. If we were to talk about a low-grade heavenly weapon like that young man called Lin Dao, we might have a solution. Old man Jiang could tell the grade of the blue flame ruler with just a glance. He shook his head and said with regret. Xiaoyan quietly nodded his head and kept the blue flame ruler. He had originally taken it out with a trace of hope in his heart. If it was really so simple to refine a high-grade heavenly weapon, a heavenly weapon of this level would not be so rare. Let's exchange it for another one. Ling Gu wiped the spatial crack in front of him and said softly. Xiaoyan was silent for a moment and looked at Wu Shaoqi again. He hesitated for a moment and said, what did she ask about the Fire Emperor? About the Fire Emperor's past life and the reason for his death. The 3 of them did not hide anything and said it directly. All right, my second condition is to ask the 3 of you what the Fire Emperor scripture has to do with my cultivation technique. As he spoke, the origin key in Xiaoyan's body began to surge. As the origin chains rumbled, a vigorous origin key gushed out from the top of his skull. Above his head, a map of the flame mantra's meridians was formed. He clearly remembered it. When he first entered the realm in Valley and saw Wu Shaoqi, the Fire Emperor scripture she cultivated had a strange combination with his flame mantra. A Fire Emperor and a vast ancient book had appeared. There seemed to be an inexplicable connection between them. Since Wu Shaoqi had asked the 3 of them about the Fire Emperor scripture, she had naturally shown them the cultivation channels of the Fire Emperor scripture. With the profound knowledge, they might be able to find out about this flame mantra that even Elder Yi had never seen before. The three of them were startled when they saw the map of Shaoyan's meridians. Then, their hearts skipped a beat, and they all recalled the Fire Emperor scripture meridian map that Wu Shaoqi had used before. After comparing the two, they observed it for a while. The shock in their eyes became stronger and stronger. The connection between the Fire Emperor scripture and the Flame Mantra was extremely strong. It could be said that there was a 30% similarity, but for some reason, it gave them the feeling that the Fire Emperor scripture in their minds. It was like the respect of an emperor when a subject saw it. Chapter End. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 463. The Art of the Silent Starlight Step. Weird. Truly weird. Old Man Chang stared in shock at the image of the meridians above Shaoyan's head, shaking his head and clicking his tongue. Clearly, he was deeply astonished. They had long heard of the reputation of the Fire Emperor scripture and knew of its power. Yet, compared to this strange meridian map, it seemed to be on an entirely different level. You three seniors don't recognize it. Upon hearing this, Shaoyan's expression darkened slightly, but he still did not give up. The three of us have followed the Domain Lord for tens of thousands of years. When the Domain Lord fell, he sealed us away. 1,000 years ago, the Guardians used a great divine ability to awaken us from the seal. We have witnessed the great rise and fall of the ancient era. We have seen all kinds of ultimate techniques and skills. But you, I truly do not recall. Shaoyan smiled bitterly upon hearing that. As his origin key flow circulated, it dispersed the image of the meridians in the sky. I hope the three seniors can keep this cultivation technique a secret for me. After a pause, Shaoyan cupped his fists and spoke sincerely. The Flame Mantra's root had been kept secret until now. So far, only Elder Yi and Wu Shaoqi had seen the Flame Mantra. If it weren't for the fact that they knew about the relationship between the Flame Mantra and the Fire Emperor scripture, Shaoyan would never have revealed it in front of the three of them. Do not worry about that. Nodding, Old Man Chang said in a deep voice. He couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. Shaoyan had mentioned 2 conditions in a row, but they had been unable to fulfill either. Not only were they powerless to advance a weapon to high-grade heavenly rank, they had never even seen Shaoyan's cultivation technique before. This made them blush with embarrassment. If that is the case, please tell me the most detailed information about the Mingyan Divine Domain, seniors. After pondering for a moment, Shaoyan finally spoke. He had used such a precious opportunity to learn about the Mingyan Divine Domain. It was after careful consideration that he decided to make a trip there after the 4 academies competition ended. Whether it was to recover the 1,000 Leaves ancient monic flame or to improve his strength, this was a trial he couldn't avoid. It was the best chance to understand everything about the Mingyan Divine Domain. Mingyan Divine Domain. All right. Upon hearing this, Old Man Chang heaved a sigh of relief. Compared to the previous 2 conditions, this one was much easier to fulfill. The space in front of him shattered. Old Man Chang reached in and searched for a moment. When he withdrew his hand, a silver scroll was already in his grasp. It records everything about the Mingyan Divine Domain. The major sects, the capable individuals, all kinds of interesting anecdotes, including mountains and geography. It is all recorded here. After handing the silver scroll to Shaoyan, Old Man Chang chuckled. There was a hint of pride in his tone. The scroll contained the most detailed information on the Mingyan Divine Domain. Similar records in other sects couldn't compare. There is one more condition. Tell me. After Shaoyan put away the silver scroll, Ling Gu spoke again. I need a movement technique monic skill. I wonder what level the 3 seniors can provide. Taking a deep breath, Shaoyan looked at Old Man Chang and the other 2. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, as if he was speaking intentionally or unintentionally. Currently, with the help of his monic skill, aside from the first form of the White Tiger Arts, which was merely a monic spell, he could easily reach the peak speed of the 9-rotation wind-flowing body even at the speed of a monic emperor warrior. However, he lacked a stronger movement technique, a monic skill. The highest level. How about a holy art? Ling Gu raised his eyes and said with a smile. Of course I have no objections. I just wonder if the 3 seniors are willing to part with it. Xiaoyan smiled casually upon hearing this. You are truly greedy. A holy art. That is something even monic cultivation warriors like us would covet. There are only a handful of monic cultivation warriors who possess a holy art. Old man Chang looked at Xiaoyan and couldn't help but laugh. You 3 are being too serious. With your status as seniors, I'm sure you've seen many saint arts, let alone holy arts. Xiaoyan naturally didn't believe what old man Chang said. He smiled and replied, that's what you said. Ling Gu narrowed his eyes and smiled. He glanced at the other 2 and then looked at Xiaoyan. The fact that the Domain Lord has passed down the inheritance of the Star Execution Realm to you means he values you. Since that's the case, we won't be stingy. After saying that, Ling Gu waved his hand and shattered the space. Endless starlight suddenly poured out from the pitch-black spatial crack. The starlight approached from afar and enveloped the entire spatial zone in an instant. Swoosh, swoosh, dazzling stars flashed before Xiaoyan's eyes. In the next moment, a spatial storm roared. Stars rushed out from the spatial crack and gathered in Ling Gu's hand, transforming into a book sparkling with starlight. On the cover were 4 large, shining words, Starlight Silent Step. This is the movement technique of one of the guardians of the heavens, a monic skill. It has reached the level of a holy art, and it is extremely difficult to cultivate. Ling Gu took a deep look at the book in his hand and smacked his tongue. Although reluctant, he still handed it to Xiaoyan. Suppressing the wild joy in his heart, Xiaoyan calmly received the book from Ling Gu's hand. As soon as he made contact, his expression suddenly changed. A sharp aura transmitted from the book, as if numerous surging starlight swords were about to pierce through his palm. Qi, a sharp glint instantly gathered in Xiaoyan's eyes. The origin key in his palm roared. A crimson gold flame swayed into existence. The flame whistled, and the penetrating sensation immediately lessened considerably. Xiaoyan clenched his teeth tightly. He wasn't worried that the monic flame would damage this seemingly fragile book. He forcefully endured the intense pain and gripped it. Previously, when his strength was only at the monic spirit level, he had encountered a similar situation when grasping the heavenly monic fire-burning body. If it weren't for his possession of the monic flame. But now, it was merely the aura of a holy art, so it naturally wouldn't harm him. Huff! The flames and the invisible starlight swords collided violently, producing a series of explosive sounds. Old man Chang and the other 2 only watched as Xiaoyan's hand slowly approached the book, showing no intention of helping. If he couldn't even withstand such a tiny bit of aura suppression, attempting to cultivate a holy art would be a complete joke. Suddenly, Xiaoyan exerted force with his arm. The sound of the starlight swords breaking was like a sonic boom. Xiaoyan smoothly grasped the book, the Starlight Silent Step. Not bad. Upon seeing this, the 3 of them smiled gently, appearing quite satisfied. This Starlight Silent Step was a movement technique cultivated by one of the protectors of the heavens. It naturally contained a great deal of starlight energy. For Xiaoyan to withstand it was no easy feat, but merely resisting this force was far from enough. He still had to defeat the art spirit residing within it. Only then would he be able to comprehend this holy art further. Thank you, seniors. After storing the book in his storage ring, Xiaoyan bowed slightly to the 3 of them. After his original storage ring was shattered by the Star Region Lord's magical body in the Forbidden Area, the latter had created a new one for him. Its quality far surpassed the previous one, so he naturally didn't have to worry about the powerful aura of the holy art shattering it. This movement technique, the holy art, is quite profound. If you cultivate it with all your effort, you might glimpse the ultimate path of movement. Nodding, Ling Gu revealed a mysterious smile. Before Xiaoyan could say anything, old man Chang waved his hand. Mu Yuyang and the other 3, who were wrapped in origin key, immediately awoke. When they saw Xiaoyan, they were stunned for a moment, then joyful smiles appeared on their faces. After the experience just now, they had also gained significant benefits. All of you may leave now. The rest is up to you. The three of us are not qualified to interfere further. Pausing, Ling Gu said, just now, I have been told, no matter where you go, you must prioritize raising your strength first, to deal with the soul demon that might erupt at any time. Chapter End. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 464. Identify. Xiaoyan was shocked when he heard what Old Man Chang said. He looked at Lindao and the other two men. He had only told Ma Huyang about the soul demon. Since Old Man Chang had said so, this also meant that Ma Huyang had told Lindao, Wu Shaoqi, and Mail everything that had happened. As expected, after listening to Old Man Chang's advice, aside from Ma Huyang, Lindao and the other two nodded solemnly in agreement. When they each came here to make their own requests, the three of them had been told about the soul demon. They were extremely shocked and finally understood the reason behind Kang Feng's drastic change. Swoosh! Ling Gu gently waved his sleeve, and the space formed by the origin key vanished. Their figures once again appeared before everyone's eyes. They have finally come out. Everyone exclaimed softly upon seeing this. They took a deep breath, and their eyes revealed an incomparably blazing gaze. They had traveled thousands of miles just to find one or two outstanding students for their respective sects. They had waited for this moment for 2 months. Su Jiang's pupils shrank when he saw the 5 of them. He observed them carefully as if trying to discern something. After all, each of them could request 3 conditions from the 3 elders. Such an opportunity was not easy to come by. If they could obtain items that would aid them the most, their strength would undoubtedly increase significantly. 3 academy leaders, follow me. Ling Gu leaped up and looked in the direction of Su Jiang and the other 2. His voice sounded beside the latter's ears, and then he flew into the distance. Swoosh! The expressions of Su Jiang, Yi Xuan, and Tang Hong changed upon hearing this. They followed closely behind Ling Gu. The rewards for each student had been completed. Next were the rewards for each academy. All right, I have made everyone wait for a long time. Next, it is time for the selection rite. Everyone can propose various conditions to attract these students to join your sects. Let's make this clear in advance. This is based on their wishes. No one can force it. Old Man Chang smiled and looked at the experts from the various sects who were eager to recruit. He waved his hand, and all the students moved to the central position, announcing the start of the so-called draft. Ju Tianho, I am from the Celestial Domain Fire Palace. I sincerely invite you to join our sect. With your ability to control flames, your strength can definitely advance further in our sect. As soon as his voice faded, an old man in a red robe spoke hastily. In the profound crystal realm, everyone could clearly see the techniques each student displayed. Hence, each student was not chosen merely for being the strongest, but for being the most suitable for their respective sect. Ju Tianho was slightly stunned upon hearing that. He did not expect to be the first one approached. Spirit Fire Palace. After hearing what the red-robed old man said, Ju Tianho sank into deep thought. His heart was slightly moved. As a Saint Spirit Fire body, he had some understanding of the powers in the star domain, especially the Spirit Fire Palace. It was said that everyone in the sect cultivated fire attribute Origin Kiss, which would be very beneficial to his cultivation technique. While Ju Tianho pondered, the other experts didn't stay idle either. They all stepped forward to invite their favorite students. Some even offered substantial rewards to rope in a student. Young Master Zhou, if your sister and you are willing to join our Hao Yuan Palace. A white-bearded old man in a blue robe from the Sacred Heaven realm looked at Zhou Buyi and spoke in a loud voice. Young Master Zhou, you'd better join the Shangqing Palace. All the previous masters of the Shangqing Palace have had several encounters with the patriarchs of the Zhou clan and share a deep friendship. If the 2 of you join the Shangqing Palace, you won't have to worry about preferential treatment. Even the great primordial purity mantra, famous throughout the star field, will definitely be imparted to you. Another silver-haired woman waved her hand and proposed an even more tempting offer to Zhou Buyi. After all, the great primordial purity mantra was a renowned technique in the star field, some aspects of which were even on par with the great circulatory cycle revolution of the Zhou clan. Lindao, our sect needs someone as murderous as you to join us. With your talent, you will definitely become one of the most powerful figures in the star field in the future. An old man with sharp eyebrows looked at Lindao with a pair of cold eyes, as if gazing upon a perfect piece of unpolished jade. His tone was filled with wild joy. Mahuyang, the technique you used just now should be the Green Lotus Sword Truth. The Lotus Sword sect originated from the ancient era, created by an ancient mighty figure, old ancestor Li Taixuan. He killed within 10 steps, traveled 1,000 miles without leaving a trace. I think you will be very interested in it. A white-browed old man with a white blade embroidered on his robe narrowed his eyes. He looked at Mahuyang with a faint smile, as if certain that Mahuyang would join them. Green Lotus Sword Sect. Mahuyang's heart shook upon hearing this. His originally calm eyes looked at the old man in the sword robe. Under the old man's smiling expression, he slowly nodded. For a moment, nearly 30 elders from various sects on the mountain peak began to rope in their favorite students. The benefits they offered were greater than the previous ones, making it nearly impossible for people to refuse. Shaoyan. While the other students were surrounded, many experts naturally gathered around Shaoyan. Without waiting for the crowd to speak, Shaoyan preemptively said, "Thank you for your kindness, everyone. However, I do not wish to join any sect for the time being. Everyone, please do not waste your breath on me. With your ability, if you join my Star Abyss Pavilion, you will definitely achieve great things." An elder still didn't give up and spoke. Shaoyan smiled bitterly and cupped his hands towards the people around him. After that, he leaped up and avoided being surrounded by the crowd. Shaoyan had never considered joining a sect. After all, sects came with too many restrictions. Given Shaoyan's character, he truly couldn't tolerate others ordering him around. Swoosh! Shaoyan landed on a huge rock at the edge of the mountain. Before he could stand still, a beautiful figure rushed over and landed beside him. It was Wu Shaoqi. "Why did you come out?" Shaoyan was not surprised to see Wu Shaoqi. He casually asked, "I am not interested in joining any sect." Pouting, Wu Shaoqi's beautiful eyes were watery. She looked at Shaoyan and said, "What do you plan to do after this ends?" "Me, I will naturally advance to Emperor cultivation first, then go to the Mingyan Divine Domain." Shaoyan had already made up his mind and spoke without hesitation. Mingyan Divine Domain. Wu Shaoqi nodded lightly upon hearing that. She pondered for a moment and suddenly looked at Shaoyan with a smile, saying, "I also plan to go to the Mingyan Divine Domain. Why don't we go together?" "Sure." Shaoyan smiled upon hearing that. He had a slight guess about Wu Shaoqi's purpose for going to the Mingyan Divine Domain. Flame Lord had once ventured there. It was very likely he had left something behind. Wu Shaoqi might have learned something from Old Man Chang, prompting her desire to go. "By the way, this is the essence protecting pill I asked for from you. With it, the risk of you advancing to Emperor cultivation will be much smaller." She stretched out her jade-like hand and took out a transparent jade box. Wu Shaoqi handed it to Shaoyan. "Thank you." Although he already knew about it, Shaoyan still felt a complex emotion. He didn't refuse and took the transparent jade box. The only thing he could do was to figure out the relationship between the Flame Mantra and the Fire Emperor scripture as soon as possible. At that time, he might be able to offer Wu Shaoqi some help. "You have helped me so much. This essence protecting pill is my reward." Patting Shaoyan's shoulder, Wu Shaoqi seemed to have achieved her goal. Shaoyan smiled and looked into the distance without saying anything. He also knew Wu Shaoqi's character. Being overly polite would only make him seem like an outsider. Humph! Suddenly, Shaoyan's gaze paused. He stared intently at a young man in the distance. The latter's appearance looked so familiar. Zhou Yuan. He has been here all this time. Chapter N. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 465. Through. Zhou Yuan and Zhu Mo stood together. The latter did not compete with the others for the outstanding performance of the students. In his heart, Zhou Yuan had already achieved his goal. His future achievements and potential would definitely not be inferior to these people. Yuan, let's go. You have also seen the strength of these students. When we return, you will have motivation. Zhu Mo said with a big belly. The students here could be said to be the most outstanding young men of the young generation in the entire star field. In the future, they might become the strongest of the generation. And these people would also be Zhou Yuan's opponents in the future. He nodded. Just as Zhou Yuan was about to leave with Zhu Mo, he seemed to have noticed Xiaoyan's gaze. A bright light flashed in his eyes, and his sharp eyes also looked at Xiaoyan. In an instant, they looked at each other. Long time no see. Looking at Xiaoyan, Zhou Yuan no longer had the shock he had when they first met. He smiled slightly, and his lips moved slightly. In profound crystal realm, he clearly knew the strength of Xiaoyan. The strength that Xiaoyan displayed after defeating Kang Feng. It seemed like Xiaoyan was even stronger than him. Long time no see. Looking at the distant Zhou Yuan, Xiaoyan also understood the former's lip reading. His eyes narrowed and Xiaoyan could not help but sigh in his heart. He did not expect that this fellow was still alive. Fortune played tricks on people, and the two of them met here once again. Recalling the first time he had met Zhou Yuan, the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth curled up into a smile. He had already thought it through. He guessed that Zhou Yuan's target was the Holy Art's heavenly monic fire-burning body. Due to some unknown factors, he had obtained it, and it had become one of his most powerful techniques. The seemingly wild and unruly Zhou Yuan now seemed to be much more restrained, but he was like a sharp sword. He had found a suitable scabbard and temporarily concealed its sharpness. When it was pulled out from the scabbard, the sharpness it displayed was enough to shock everyone. Zhou Yuan did not have the intention to go forward and talk to Xiaoyan. He seemed to have forgotten about the cooperation between the two of them back then. He merely cupped his hands towards Xiaoyan and gave him a deep look. After which, he followed Zhu Mo and left the mountain top and flew downwards. Who is that person? Wu Shaoqi asked curiously as she looked at Zhou Yuan's departing figure. She could clearly sense the ki of the former, which was different from the ki of an ordinary monarch emperor. He's the same as me, a very strong guy who has just broken through to the monarch emperor. Xiaoyan lowered his head and said in a soft voice. Nodding her head, Wu Shaoqi did not ask any more questions. Ripples flowed in her beautiful eyes, and the smile on her pretty face gradually disappeared. In its place was a look of worry. Xiaoyan, do you think the soul demon will really cause trouble again? Wu Shaoqi lowered her head slightly as if she was muttering to herself. Old man Jiang and the other two had mentioned it to her before. The soul demon was in chaos in the ancient era. That period of history could be said to be a tragic sight. The entire great world had fallen into an abyss of misery. Mountains and rivers were overturned, and the stars lost their luster. Xiaoyan was silent for a long time. Then, he let out a sigh and let out a long sigh. Since Yavmu has escaped, he won't hide anymore. Kang Feng's strength has already reached the half-step emperor cultivation. After being controlled by Yavmu, he has reached the emperor cultivation level. If he finds an opportunity to control other heavenly sovereign level experts, he will most likely have the strength to fight against a supreme saint. Xiaoyan's mouth twitched slightly as he continued. What's more, none of the 9 soul demon disciples have died. Most of them have been sealed. If these seals are removed and the 9 of them join forces, their strength might really bring chaos to the entire great world. Wu Shaoqi sighed lightly when she heard this. After a long time, she finally said leisurely, I am worried about grandfather. With his age, it is extremely difficult for him to advance his strength. If the soul demon is in chaos, With his strength, he will not be able to do anything. Wu Shaoqi's eyes gradually became determined as she spoke. A hint of solemnity also surged onto her pretty face. Therefore, I need to go to Mingyan Divine Domain and integrate Flame Lord's ability as soon as possible to increase my strength. Only then can I protect my grandfather and the academy. At the end of her words, Wu Shaoqi smiled slightly. Her black eyes blinked like the stars in the night sky. A gentle breeze blew over and lifted up her jet black hair. It was extremely gentle. Flame Lord has traveled the entire world and the main place is the Star Moon Spirit Domain. How can you be sure that there will be a legacy left by Flame Lord in the Mingyan Divine Domain? Looking at Wu Shaoqi's appearance, the trace of irritation in Xiaoyan's heart disappeared, and he asked softly. You still remember this jade pendant, right? Wu Shaoqi flipped her jade palm and took out a red jade pendant. On the jade pendant, a lifelike strange beast seemed to be roaring at the sky, looking very lifelike. Seeing Xiaoyan nod his head, Wu Shaoqi continued, I have asked 3 seniors about it. The beast on it is called Open-Minded, an ancient beast. It has the pure bloodline of the vermilion bird, and is one of the guardians of the Mingyan Divine Domain in the ancient times. Therefore, I believe that there might be something related to Flame Lord in the Mingyan Divine Domain. Enlightenment. Upon hearing this, Xiaoyan nodded his head and carefully looked at the strange beast on the jade pendant. The strange beast spread its wings and soared into the sky. Although it was only a carving, it was still full of boundless momentum. Xiao, do you know how to be enlightened? On the surface, he carefully looked at the jade pendant on Wu Shaoqi's hand. In his heart, Xiaoyan could not wait to speak. I know. That is one of the strongest purebred bloodlines of the vermilion bird. It is much purer than the bloodline of the little black bird in Forest Domain. The lazy voice of the Xiao was heard, but there was a trace of anger in the last sentence. Obviously, it still had the appearance of the 9-nether profound bird in its memory. How about the details? Xiaoyan's heart moved. His face involuntarily revealed a trace of joy. Although the vermilion bird isn't like the azure dragon, where there are countless descendants, there are still quite a few of them. Kai Ming, Ghost Chariot, Bai Fang, and Golden Crow are collectively known as the 4 great divine birds. They are the purest descendants of the vermilion bird, and their strength is also outrageously strong. That's all I know. The Xiao yawned and said lazily. 4 great divine birds. A strange expression appeared on Xiaoyan's face. The 4 ancient spirits really had more and more descendants. However, he had never heard of these 4 great divine birds. What's wrong? Wu Shaoqi asked curiously when she saw the uncertain expression on Xiaoyan's face. It's nothing. This jade pendant is really unusual. Xiaoyan smiled and shook his head. He then looked into the distance. After half a day, the so-called talent show had ended. Of course, there were some who were happy, some who were disappointed. Su Jiang, Yi Xuan, and Tang Hong had returned as well. The 2 of them returned to the central zone and asked around. They also knew the decision of the crowd. Mu Yuyang had joined the Green Lotus Sword sect. Lin Dao had joined the Lifeless Heavenly sect, and Zhu Tianhou had joined the Fire Spirit Palace as expected. The 3 sects were very famous in the Star Domain. Zhou Buyi and Zhou Exingyu had rejected all the invitations. As young master of the Zhou clan, with their cultivation resources, naturally, they didn't need to be bullied by any sect. Both of you should have your own thoughts and plans. This is good as well. Traveling around the great world will be beneficial to expanding your strength and horizons. Looking at Xiaoyan and Wu Shaoqi, Su Jiang smiled gently. There was also an unconcealed smile on his stern face. It was obvious that the Yunlo Academy had obtained immeasurable benefits this time. The 4 academies competition has finally come to an end. After returning to the academy, it doesn't matter if you want to stay in the academy and continue your cultivation or go out, it will be up to you. This competition can be considered as a graduation exam. Congratulations, you have all passed the exam. Su Jiang looked at the 5 people in front of him and said with a smile on his face. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.